Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Brothers and sisters, just want to share some information here that I have forgot all about related to 1987, so long ago. And as you're familiar with the Muslim-Mason dialogue in Washington, D.C. in 1987, it was around March 6th, although it was published in this paper here. 1987, and as you know, this is we sent to the Imam, and this is led to Imam Muhammad and I, resulted in our first meeting in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, on a New Medina property. I just want to quickly share some other things that I didn't know. I'm coming across it now, that occurred after this Muslim-Mason dialogue, before me and Imam Muhammad met, that led up to that in some kind of way on this same subject.
You're good. The book Al-Islam, Christianity and Freemasonry by Mustafa El-Amin is worth reading. Right. And it is, he has copies here available. We have some. If you did purchase one last night, I strongly urge you to purchase one today, because it's something that should be on a must on the reading list of every Mason. I firmly believe that. I don't agree with everything it says, but I recommend it very highly.
For our brothers and sisters, our prophet, the prophet of Islam.
First Muslim-Mason dialogue.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come to Thee today, we thank Thee for the opportunity we have.
What we like to do,
Brother Bailey, come here.
we like to present to the Galactic Society of Freemasons with a copy of the Holy Quran. I'm sure some of you already have it, but just as a presentation, which is one of the best things that a Muslim can give to anyone, the Holy Quran. And we thank you for the invitation. And here I'd like to present this to you from myself, from Brother El-Amin from the Muslim community. Thank you very kindly, and I'm sure you will share it. Over to the president and present it to, we have it on display. You will have it on display. Gentlemen, this is my tab for the day's lunch. Okay.
And as we know, this is what led to Imam Muhammad and I meeting in August, around the 23rd of August in 1987. Okay, but we want to look at some steps that happened right after that dialogue that I forgot about, and it's amazing myself, I would say, is big. Where we went after that, after the Muslim-Mason dialogue, we went to a few places before we met Imam Muhammad.
But brother Imam, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the time, and I pray Allah to bless you with success and good health, and bless you with great understanding. I know you have great understanding, and I'm just overwhelmed. But from my heart, I really want to try to make a contribution to the advancement of Al-Islam here in America, and I really want to do my best. And I appreciate any advice. I know you said very sensitive.
Yes, it is. It's my desire to have this opportunity to meet you in person. And as I said, the presentation that you made, in my opinion, is very, very impressive. And I do believe that you are not given your good wishes to the secret orders, but you're trying to bring them to question the value of secrecy, the legitimacy of secrecy as they practice it, and I think to that extent you're serving the religion, you're serving the interests of the Muslims, you know. But as I said, that because of this very sensitive issue of secrecy, masonry, and be truthful with you, I don't know if we have any grounds to work against these secret orders, unless they're practicing something that is harm and detriment to the society of man. You know, I don't think we have grounds to work against them or to work for the end or termination of these kind of orders. You know, I don't know if we have anything to go upon. But I do know of a lot of good that many of them are doing, like the Masons, the Lions Club, you know, those people like that. They do a lot of good, but at the same time.
So I just want to tie that in our meeting. I'll show the rest later. Okay, so this happened after March. This happened March, April, May, June, July, August, 5 months after the first Muslim-Mason dialogue. But what I'm seeing and realizing now is that even before I met Imam Muhammad, I was invited other places in our community and others to talk about this same subject. So I had the same attitude, the same outlook towards the Freemasonry up until then, and I'm going to share that with you. It was only about 5 months later, after meeting with the Imam and him saying what you just heard him say, that I started looking at things different. But what's interesting is my next stop after the first Muslim dialogue. Okay, my first stop there was in June.
Here to speak is definitely a step in the right direction and unifying that and believing.
After this meeting here, I'll show you where I went.
Brother Daly, come here.
We like to present to the Galactic Society of the Freemasons with a copy of the Holy Quran. I'm sure some of you already have it, but just as a presentation, which is one of the best things that a Muslim can give to anyone, the Holy Quran. And we thank you for the invitation. And here I'd like to present this to you from myself, from Brother El-Amin from the Muslim community. Thank you very kindly, and I'm sure you will share it. Over to the President.
Alhamdulillah, even though we ended, of course, peacefully, me give him a Quran, I just want to play a clip of where my mind was towards the Masons in this very dialogue before I met with Imam W.D. Muhammad. So I'm just going to play a real quick clip and come out of this. It's too long already.
All respect due to Prince Hall, the great efforts that were made. I say that we should stop seeking legitimization, authority, approval, and acceptance from the white man. To practice the ancient wisdom. We don't need his approval to practice the ancient wisdom. If you will agree that the sciences is there in Africa, and we are descendants from Africa, then we have, by inheritance, a right to the knowledge. We don't need approval from England or America. And this in my book, I question, not disrespecting Prince Hall, I question what would make a black man think that the white man who enslaved us, who denied us our rights as a human being, who has lied on us for years, would give us some damn grand secret. That was my question. And during that point, 1770.
Alhamdulillah, we ended up after the Muslim-Mason dialogue, June 20th, 1987, at Sing Sing, the Lifers Prison, well-known Sing Sing, which is in El-Amin, New York, right? El-Amin Correctional Facility, to speak on Masonic symbolism. I had forgot totally about that. And this is June, right? And this is before we meet the Imam. This is only a month or so after the Muslim-Mason dialogue. But I'm saying this was my first stop. Then there's another stop and another stop. And then there's one maybe a week and a half before I met Imam Muhammad. But you see this? So I'm going to play some of this. I can't find the video, so I don't know how clear this is going to be, but I'm just going to play some of it, okay? El-Amin Correctional Facility, Masonic symbolism. You see, El-Amin Correctional Facility, Masonic symbolism, June 20th, 1987 Sing Sing, right? Lifers. And I went straight there after the Muslim-Mason dialogue. Sometimes I forget if I turned the recorder on, so if I'm repeating myself, that's because I wasn't sure if I had this on the camera. So I don't know how clear it's going to be. I had the video, I couldn't find that.
13, when it's reported, Prophet Muhammad said, none of you truly believe until he wishes for his brother that which he wishes for himself. Allah tells us in the Quran that in the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and in the day, as well as in yourselves, are signs for men who reflect, men of faith. So briefly, if we draw our attention to some of the signs in creation. Again, my subject is going to be on Masonic symbolism, but inshallah, we'll try to tie it into Islam, Christianity, and our everyday life and activities. If we draw our attention briefly to the sun as a body of fire, as a body of heat, as a body of energy in the creation. The sun is a good sign of that leadership, of charity, of freedom, because the sun shines on everyone. The sun feeds dead matter. It feeds the dead earth. If we plant a seed in the earth and the right conditions exist in terms of the water and in terms of the sun and the climate, then it will grow and give life to that dead seed. It gives us energy. It gives us the vitamin that we need. So, what is a good symbol of leadership and of open expression. Now, in the Masonic lodge, the question is usually asked in the opening ceremony concerning the various stations of the officers. And the question is asked concerning the worshipful master. He is the leader of the lodge. The question is asked, what is his position and what is his responsibility? His position is in the east. And it is said, as the sun rises in the east to govern and rule the day, so does the worshipful master sit in the east to govern and rule the lodge. Now, I say that's inappropriate for Masonic wisdom, because this particular brother is confined to the lodge. I don't think that's a good analogy for a worshipful master in the lodge, because the sun's responsibility and his action gives life to the dead. It doesn't exclude anyone. Whereas in the Masonic lodge, his responsibility is to those brothers that come to him for the life. So I would challenge on that note that it's not an appropriate analogy that they use, because again, it just doesn't fit. And what we're about doing is making things correct. So what we want to try to do, inshallah, is follow it. Follow the signs that Allah has put in creation. And be open. And be, as Allah told Prophet Muhammad, to arise and proclaim the message open. So on that note, let me move into another area. Allah mentioned to Moses, he said, take your shoes off. You're on sacred ground. Now I'm going to go into just a little bit of mythology here real quick. Take your shoes off because you're on sacred ground. And when we come here, we take our shoes off. We're comfortable. Now the word shoe, the people that designed a lot of this symbolism are really sort of far out, because they try to bring everything to conform to their symbolism, to the point that they're trying to bring it forward. Now Shu derives from the mythological figure Shu, S-H-U. And this figure, S-H-U, was arched. He's fixed as arched in the heavens. So it's like the arch on our foot. And when you make shoes, there's an arch for the shoe. So there's a comparison here, because the sensitive part of our arch is separated from the earth. And this God was in the heavens. So in essence, what they are alluding to, the tricksters, so to speak, are alluding to, is that they have taken the foundation, our foot, to stand correct on the earth, on our material concerns, to get involved in the material activities of life, of our family life, and they have taken it and given us spirituality. And what has happened, you hear in Christianity, they say, you can have the whole world, but give me Jesus, to make you an accessory. So with the concept of shoes, so Allah said to Moses, take off your shoes, you're on sacred ground. When we're here on sacred ground. We're here to worship Allah and pay the proper respects to Allah and to the Prophet Muhammad and to the Master. So we don't come with no funny stuff, with no extreme spiritualism. We come with our foot on the ground, and that's the whole idea. But they tried to separate us, and they have separated us from our true concerns.
Now in masonry they have a degree, which is one of the most important degrees, and it's called the Royal Arch degree. Okay? Now we're still with the arch. Okay? And when we're talking about the arch, we're talking about a separation from the material concern. Now in this Royal Arch degree, it just so happens that they focus on Moses and the signs that he received from God and his responsibility. And the sign that Moses received from God, one of the signs is given like this, wherein God told Moses to stick his hand in his bosom and it came out white, then he put it back in and it came back to his natural color. So one of the signs of the Royal Arch Masons is here. It's just like this. The other sign is when God gave Moses had a staff. And he said, throw down the staff. And it changed into a serpent. And he jumped back. So that would be one of their signs. They would have a pen, a pencil, or whatever, and they cast it down and they sort of slide back. Those are some of the signs for that particular degree. But just keep in mind on this arch, because we're going to come back to that. Okay, I don't want to get way off the track with that. Freemasonry. The meaning Freemason. There's two types of masonry: operative and speculative. Operative is the actual physical, hands-on masonry, the bricklaying, the actual bricklaying. And it is the science of bricklaying, or the art of bricklaying, of building, physical operative masonry. Now, Freemasonry, the other end is speculative masonry, which has given spiritual definition to the operative masonry. They give a spiritual definition to stone, spiritual definition to the working tool, etc., etc., etc. But when we look at it, it's called speculative masonry. To speculate, a spectator is one who is not directly involved, but he sits on the outside and he observes, and he watches the game or whatever it is. But that's a spectator. So they call it speculative masonry because they don't have a definite interpretation of the wisdom of the symbolism. Therefore, we who are not Masons, we have just as much right to elaborate and expound on the symbolism, because it's speculative, it's not direct. And we don't have to be Masons to expound on that. So don't let anyone fool you to think that you have to be a Mason to expound on their wisdom or to get the wisdom and teach the wisdom. We want that to be clear, because they've intimidated people. They've intimidated Muslims. They've intimidated Christians to fear that certain science, certain knowledge is only for the elite, only for the select group. But that's BS, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of all knowledge, and we who say we are Muslims, we have to take that knowledge and we have to move with that knowledge. So Freemasonry, a Mason is one who builds. So when we move into the spiritual region, we build ourselves as individuals, as families. We take charge of our passion. We build our minds, our intelligence, our intellect, our inner being. And that's free, because Allah has given it to us. Allah has opened it up for us. Allah says in the Quran that He created Adam, and He took Adam and put him before the angels and told him to tell them their name and everything about them. Allah made that available to man. So indeed it is free. If anything, they need to change it from Freemasonry to restricted masonry or something like that. But for what we have here, Freemasonry is the term. And these are the two terms, speculative and operative. Now the speculative Masons basically are those that are in the lodge, and they give it their definitions to the square, the compass, etc., etc. Okay? Are you with me, brothers? Alhamdulillah. Now we're going to move into some of the tools, hopefully. The first degree, enter the apprentice. The enter the apprentice degree is the first degree. The candidate or the person who comes in seeking light, seeking knowledge in Masonry, is considered a man who has been in the dark, the profane, the uninitiated. So he comes and he knocks at the door of Masonry seeking light, seeking more light. So on the first degree, the apprentice enters the lodge, and he's in his initiation ceremony, his left sleeve is rolled up. Now understand our growth as human beings, we start out weak first. And the left side has, for many years, been considered the weaker part of man. Not that it's bad, but it's been considered the weaker part of man. So as human beings, we start out weak. As children, we grow weak and we grow into strength. So logically, we can understand starting out left as a symbol of the natural growth. Even though in the Semitic language, we move from right to left, but logically, I think we can understand it. So he comes in, he rolls his left sleeve up, he rolls his left leg sleeve up, his shirt is tucked in on the left side. He's blindfolded and a cable toe is put on his neck. And he comes into the lodge and he takes his death ceremony not to reveal any secret. Now at this degree, understand, the candidate starts out with his left foot first on the path. He starts out, he puts his left foot out, he's instructed how to walk, how to approach the east. Now as Muslims, we don't need to know how to approach the east from the lodge. We know how to approach with the Quran and the Sunnah. We walk with the Quran and the Sunnah. We don't need to knock on nobody's door to teach us how to walk, to teach us how to address, or how to walk towards the east, or how to pray. We don't need that. It's good to know the knowledge, but we don't need to knock on the door seeking light. So he steps up on his left foot. And if you look at it, and all of this comes out of ancient Egypt. They try to trace it to ancient Egypt, Africa. And you look at the drawings of the ancient gods, you always see the people that always had, if you look at your pictures, a foot out, the left foot out. And this means progress on the path, movement on the path of knowledge, intellectual development, and community concerns. That there's movement on the path. So the candidate is taught first to put his left foot out. He starts on his left. Then he brings his right foot up, for those who can see it, and he puts the heel to the hollow of the left. So you can understand, if you see it, you recognize it. It's not quite like this. He puts it here, forming a 90-degree angle. Okay? It's formed like this. Left foot out, right foot forms the angle. 90-degree angle. So this is how, on the first degree, he steps out. Now, at the altar, there's the compass, the square, and the compass, the square, and the Bible, which are considered the three great lights of Mason. The three great lights of Mason. Now, as you enter the prentice, he finds the point of the compass under the square. Now, I just want to give it to you just as it is, before I try to give any interpretation or elaborate. I want to give it to you just as it is. So he finds the points of the compass under the square. And there he takes his oath. After he takes his oath, the worshipful master approaches him and he teaches him the sign and the token of that degree. A token is a handshake, a friendly handshake as they call it, that a brother may recognize one in the day or in the night. The first handshake is by pressing the thumb on the knuckle, the first knuckle. And this knuckle is called Boaz. B-O-A-Z. Boaz. Now, Boaz is an individual, a personality, a person. It was also the left side of Solomon's temple, they say. They had two porches entering Solomon's temple. One on the left, one on the right. You got Boaz. Okay? He's also an individual. He's also a handshake. Okay? Now, he's taught that that's on the first knuckle. So when they shake hands, they shake it on the first knuckle for that first degree. His sign is the way he takes his oath on the Bible square and compass. It sits in his hand like this, and he places his right hand over it like this. And this is where he takes his oath, but he's kneeling on his left knee. Everything is with the left at this point because he's in a weak, early stage. Everything starts with the left for the first degree. Okay? So he's on his left knee, his right knee forming a square. And the thing about Masons, everything, practically everything in science forms squares. Understand that. And at this level, he's a material man. He's conscious, is material. His first growth is his physical body, his physical concern. He's just a material man like the animals, etc. And that's how we start in the Egyptian riddle. The question is asked, what man or what creature starts out on 4, then he walks on 2, then he walks on 3, and that's man. We start out crawling with the head first, moving directly. Then, if it pleases Allah, we stand up on our feet, and we stand erect, and we walk on with 2 legs. Then when we get in our older age, we may have to depend on a staff or a cane. And that staff is symbolic of the experience that we have to lean on, which we gain through life, as well as spiritual development. So, these are the stages of growth. In Masonry, they call these 3 stages, well, there's several names: youth, manhood, and age. but they're also represented by the first 3 degrees: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. Okay? And originally, masonry consisted of only the first 3 degrees, which are essential in human development. First 3 degrees. Then they expanded it. They kicked a lot of things upstairs. But anyway, the candidate here, he learns his handshake, he learns his sign. So this sign is like this. Now look, I want you to understand his sign because it's horizontal. And understand anything, as I pointed out before at this conference, if it's laying horizontally, it's either sleep, resting, or dead. When we rest, we lay horizontal. Material things, horizontal. So his sign is like this. Okay? But you may see it, but it may not be that obvious in the public. So he may be like this. But you can really tell if he stands, it may be like this. Okay? Now this is what he calls his do-go. This is the position he took his oath. Now his penal sign is like this. He crosses it across the throat, which means his throat will be cut, his tongue buried in the sand, etc. Now the African American people who they have mistreated and haven't given us anything, but charged us a whole lot of money to get something that really doesn't add up too much. We're not giving the true meaning. So they'll think literally that it means having your throat cut. So they may kill their brother for revealing the secret. Okay? But it has greater and deeper meaning. And inshallah we'll touch on it. But the sign is here. Now his working tool is the 24-inch gauge and the common gap. Alright? The gauge is used by masons, operative masons, for measuring stone and
Alhamdulillah, I'm going to come out of this and maybe some other time I'll play the whole thing. I'm going to move it along to our next stop, and we'll be talking about some of the same thing, and you'll be able to actually see what I'm talking about. So the next stop from here, believe it or not, was in Cleveland in July. Now from there, we go to Cleveland. All right, you see July 12th, 87, right? About a month later, speak at a Dawa conference, and the workshop is the same subject. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit of that moving along. We're going to have June, July, then we're going to have August, and a couple of things happen before we meet the Imam on around the 20th, you know. And you already seen Green Haven Correctional Facility, which is around August 4th. But there's something else happening after that.
To hit the forces of oppression. So in their Masonic lodge, in the shrine degree, again, in order to be a shrine, the Masonic lodge has 2 sides. The York Rite, when you come up about 7 degrees, you have to be a Knights Templar. On the York Rite side, in order to be a shrine, you have to be a 32nd degree Mason on the Scottish Rite. That's the 33rd degree system. Okay? Now when they meet, they come in and they form what they call the mystic shrine. The African Americans is the ancient Egyptian Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. The Caucasians is the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. What shrine are they talking about? They're talking about the shrine of Islam. Let me just read briefly from one of their documents to show you. Again, why is it important? The majority of the presidents in this land have been Masons. The majority of the vice presidents, Masons. The signers of the Declaration of Independence, Masons. The framers of the Constitution, Masons. We live in this country. These things form their thoughts, form their value system, form their views. So we must know what is going on because they have concepts from our religion. Here, in this book here, one statement which is made. Who but Muhammad, they say, mingled his religion with his glory, with his women, and said this is indeed paradise. This is what we find in their shrine book, amongst other things. What we find here also. I'm going to read it to you. I underlined it to make sure. And this is directly from the Quran. You brothers here, you can probably find the surah quicker than I can. It says, wherefore their work shall not avail. Do they not travel through the earth and see the end of those who were before them? That's Quran, am I right? That's directly from the Quran. Then right down here it says, there are Muslims among us. There are others who swerve from prophecy. But whoso seeketh Islam earnestly seeks true direction. But those who swerve from truth and justice shall merit and reap abundance of chastisement. This is what the President of the United States, Roosevelt, and others have taken oaths on, statements that they have committed themselves to. So, is it not important to us? Is this not so-called the leader of the free world? This country here, the leaders of the free world? But yet, they propagate throughout the media that Muslims are infidels, Muslims are terrorists, Muslims, they're racist. Their only concern is with black people. They're not concerned with anything else. Muslims treat their women bad, but at the same time they go in their secret concessories, their secret chapters, their secret chambers, their dark chambers, and they swear on the Holy Quran. And I thought it would be very important to start at the shrine degree. That's at the top. This is after they've gone through all that they went through. Then they finally get this Quran on the altar with the Bible, and they take their oath, and they have their various signs. They say they're caught in the burning sand. They say, have you traveled from where to where, from west to east, over the hot burning sands of Arabia? Will you stop? Where will you stop? At the devil's path. What shrine are you going to worship? At the shrine of Islam. Did you walk or did you ride? I rode. What did you do after you dismounted? I tied my camel to where? To a date street where all noble men tie their camels, etc., etc., etc. They learn this, they know this, but at the same time, they come before the world, and what do they say? The Iranians, they're savages. The Iranians have taken our hostages. No travel to Libya. No, Muslims, no. Stay away from Muslims. But they have shown us, and they have been exposed for making deals with Iran. But even more important with deals with Iran, they sent a Bible to Iran outlining the similarity of all three religions, showing that they know there's a commonality, not showing that they know Islam is not a pagan religion, and knowing that they know that Islam is the answer for the liberation of our people. They know that Islam starts you out on equal footing. It says all men are equal. This is what Quran says. We are descendants of Adam, and he created Adam from dust. And he said he created us in the best of modes. So hearing that from God, we won't let no one enslave us. We don't care where they come from. So that's why they don't want to Because this message, inshallah, we want to reach not just Muslims. We want to reach our Christian brothers and sisters, our atheist brothers and sisters, whatever persuasion they're in. We're going to speak in certain terminology, certain languages, so to reach them also. So we have here the Bible. Now, the Bible, in the Quran, it condemns secrecy. It condemns this voiding of the knowledge. It condemns this manipulation, this double talk. Our Prophet Muhammad said the worst man amongst us is the one who comes to you with one face and me with another. In the shrine order, I'm going back. I can read it here, but I know it, so I'm not going to read it. They say the Shriner's order do not accept Islam. They are not Muslims, but their intent is to present themselves as Mohammedans. But their true ostensible or secret purpose is to advance the Christian religion. So if we go down on Euclid and 34, or whatever it is, you see Holy Quran, Mosque, our Quran, Mosque. If we're not knowledgeable, we'll go there to make salat. Am I correct? You go in there, he said you don't have the password. You cannot enter. But take the one who's not a Muslim and who doesn't know. He sees these clowns marching down the street on initiation. The reason I say it is because I know in Newark, I saw them with my own eyes doing initiation ceremony, dressed up like women with wigs on their head. One brother with a jacket on, with the crescent saying Salam Temple. So people may associate them with Islam. I know when you see that mosque, you associate that temple, you associate it with Islam because it says Holy Quran Mosque. So they're playing games. It's a double talk. And this is what we need to address. That if whatever you want to do in secret, that's up to you. Allah is the best knower. But when you come out to public with that, when you got Holy Quran Mosque, even if you haven't met the temple, we can accept that, but you can back out and say that's a temple. You got a mosque. But here they say mosque. What do they know about a mosque? Allah says we don't pray in mosques that is not built on taqwa. Now we go there, inshallah, if we didn't know, and we want to go in. The password to get in is Mecca. He was a common man from amongst the common people. He was what they would call the rejected. And it say the keystone that the builders rejected. Right? Then it becomes the headstone of the corner. And it is they, this Western world, that look to the east in the Masonic Lodge to question any Mason that's here, or brothers that were Masons. They know, they say, which way are you traveling? From west to east in search of light. They say that Africa, Egypt, was the home of civilization and the cradle of the mystery. This is what they say. So they were looking there for the great knowledge that they find in Egypt, in Ethiopia, Sudan, Muslims. It's not just Muslims, and even before Islam came to Africa, the Africans was on a high plane of civilization. It was just that when the light of Islam came, they were declining, and it remotivated them, regenerated, it sparked them. Is that not enough to spark us? When we look at the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and we look at his condition and his state, his father left America, his mother left America. He had to be with his uncle, his grandfather. His whole neighborhood practically turned against him. In the early days, he had a few. He had his wife, he had Zayd, he had Bilal. And Bilal came a little later, but he had that. That's all he had, up against a Quraysh tribe, worshiping 365 gods. Moving like a big field. He comes and say, La ilaha illallah, one God. And they moving like this. They invited him to come speak. El-Amin, speak. You're one of our sons. You're one of our brothers. Speak, sure, behind anything. You're a noble and trustworthy man. When we travel, we leave the world with you. Come. Sure, anything. He goes up and he says, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And they growl. They threw stones at him. They ran him out. They recognize him as a noble man. But yet when he comes to that, so that's courage. That's strength. But what did he have to work with? Just fear and faith in Allah. Pure taqwa. That's what he had. Now, we live in a world where almost the same motivation. They say, don't go up against the Masons. I'm not going up against the Masons. I'm following my obligation to the Quran, to proclaim the message openly. And they are Muslims. We are serious, just as serious about our obligation to proclaim the message openly as they are about keeping it secret. In Masons, now they say the Jews here, this is what the Bible says, slew the master builder. In Masonry, they have a story of El-Amin, the widow's son. Am I right? Those of you who know. Now remember, we talked about Osiris, who was slain, he was cut up, then Isis found him, gave birth to a son Horus. You see, this is what has happened. They had a search for Osiris, they searched for him twice, and then she finally found him. Now, they got that knowledge, they found out about this. Then they went and they tried to set up Jerusalem. And they took the emphasis off of Africa, off of Egypt, from our people, and put the emphasis on King Solomon's temple. And in the Masonic Lodge, now they got the knowledge and went to Greece, but we're talking about the Jews, the Hebrews. Okay? And I use it like that because I don't necessarily buy the story at all anyway. But nevertheless, for the symbolism, for the message that's in it, they took the knowledge from Egypt and they established Jerusalem. Now look at the parallel. They say Ham, the widow's son. He got together with Solomon and Ham, king of Tyre, and they compared it. They got a secret word. They put Ham in as the master builder of Solomon's temple. Now remember, they slew a building in Egypt. Now here come another builder, Ham, right? Now he compared it with Solomon, so they split up the word. So now they're working on this temple. Now Hiram, Abith is a title, meaning father. We think of Abraham as father, Abu. Abith was father or leader. He was a leader amongst the workers, a leader amongst the craftsmen. So Ham Abith, he was a great worker. So now what happened? 15 of them plotted, but the other 12 recanted. But the other 3, Jubilo, and Jubilah, they decided. What do they sound like? There were 3 Jews. Now that's the story. Now they, Jubilo, and Jubilah, they broke out. They say according to the story, he was going to make his devotion to God. It was noon time, still free. And after that, he was going to do his work on the trestle board, his designs for the day. Nevertheless, one approached him at the west gate, Jubilee. He said, give me the word. Tom said, I cannot. We must wait till the completion of the temple. He said, I want the word. He said, I cannot. So he struck him with his tool. He struck him in the breast, if I'm correct. Nevertheless, Jubilo. So he stumbles and he goes to the south gate. Jubilo, give me the word. I cannot. The temple is not complete. So he strikes him in the breast, in the throat. Then he stumbles and he goes, I believe he's in the west or the east gate. One of these gates. I'll look it up if necessary. And he runs into Jubilo. And he says, give me the word. He said, I cannot. The temple is not built. He says, die there. And he strikes him in the forehead. Now here, according to the story, Jubilo, and Jubilo. 3 Jews killing the master builder. This is what we find in Egypt when they say Moses. This is what we find with the story here of Hiram. Why did they kill him? He told them when the completion of the temple, you can get the word. It reflects the impatientness. And we read in the Quran of Moses in search of knowledge with the wise man. He said, you cannot be patient with me, Moses. One event happened. Sunk a ship. Why do you sink this ship? Later on he found out there were some robbers coming, so he had to sink it to save the body. Then there's a dam. He approaches a dam. I think he allowed the dam to overflow. Then there was another aspect. But the point was, it related to the impatience. They were not patient. They were greedy. They were hungry. They couldn't wait for the building, not of the temple, but for the building of society, for the upliftment of society on the basis of brotherhood, truth, and justice. They were not patient. It had to go their way. So they slew this master builder. Then Solomon, they took the roll call to see who all was there. So they put the emphasis there. So Solomon, they took a roll call, and they find the Jubilo, and Jubilo was not there. And they found that Hiram was missing. So they sent out the search party to find where is Hiram. Now mind you, they were looking for the word that was cut up. They split it between the three according to the story. So then when they finally found the ruffians, they found them, they captured them, they beheaded them. Then they went back to the grave. They went looking for Hiram. When they first killed him, they threw him in the rough. Then they came back and buried him in the west, on a hill. This is what is in their secret teaching. They buried him in the west. So then when they finally searched, and they found the grave, and they approached the grave, and they got to the grave, they found an axial tree there, which gave them some indication. They said one of the men went to rest, and when he went to pull up, he pulled this little axial plant up, which gave them an indication this was the grave. So when they got to the grave site, and they saw the state that Hiram was in, so they threw their hands up and said, oh God, my Lord, was there no help for the widow's son? Now he was a widow's son. Prophet Muhammad was a widow's son. We, in a sense, are widow's son. What is the point that I'm trying to make? Inshallah, is they had no father. They had no leadership. Father is a sign of leadership, of authority. So Hiram V had no father. He had no leadership. He only had to depend on his mother, which in certain, the symbolism. And that's what we're dealing in, the symbolism. The woman represents society, and we are products of our society. The society produces our minds. Society produces us. The earth is called Mother Earth. It produces us. The woman produces us, not just physically, but she's the first one in our mental development. So she is a symbol of society. So Hiram only had to depend on his mother. So he was a widow's son. So when they approached the grave, they said, oh God, my Lord, was there no help for the widow's son? So they came up with a substitute. What happened with Osiris? Isis had to come up with a substitute to procreate. In the same story, they had to come up with a substitute. And the substitute, according to Masonry, was Mahabon. And they say, give certain definition. They say Mahabon means marrow in the bone. What the builder, or that the builder. Marrow in the bone deals with the bone marrow, the flexibility, or marrow mercy in the heart. So they approached the grave and they saw that the man had been hit in his heart. He had been hit in his throat. He had been hit in his head. The head is the brain, the center of learning, the knowledge. Did they hit us in our head? That's right. They took the knowledge. They hit him in the throat. What did they do? They cut off the language. Not just the original language of the people, but his ability to articulate what was in his head. They cut that off by cutting his throat. And when they brought us over here in the ships, they had brothers from one tribe, brothers from another, to break down the communication as we transported, so we couldn't communicate the leader involved. So they cut off the wind, and they hit them in the heart, which pumps the blood into the brain. It's the sensitivity that we have between one another. So when they saw this state, that they killed the man like this, in his vital organs, they said, oh God, my Lord, was there no help for the widow's son? Mahabone, was there no mercy in these people's bones? To kill these people like this. You cut them completely off. This is what they have done. So this is the story. Now the Jews brought the story from Egypt, from Africa. They twisted it and came up with Al-Amin, the great builder, the great architect, the builder of Solomon's temple, well versed in the arts, in the knowledge, in the science. This is what they say. But they concocted the story and they give it to them in the lie. They let it filter out. Why? So that they can say the niggers, as I said before, they can say that the Africans and the niggers had nothing. They can say that the great builders were not in Egypt. They'll say if they were Caucasian. They have certain designs. They say ain't no way no people built this. They had to come from space. This is what they say. They say these runways have to be somebody from space. No human beings could have done it. They don't want to give the credit where the credit should be given. The credit is to Allah, but Allah blessed us also. And we must respond because they have told lies and tried to write us out. They force us to deal with this issue. We would love to say everybody's on equal footing. But for too many years, they said we're not on equal footing. They said we was a percent of a man. Meaning they would take several number of us to make up one Caucasian. Now we have to address that. So they took it and they twisted. So you got the 6-pointed star, 1 point up, 1 point pointed down. So this is what the Zionists, the Jacobite. And we say Jacobite meaning that in the Bible, Jacob was a supplanter. He plotted against his brother to steal his brother's birthright. This is before he reformed. Now in the Quran we know that Jacob was a righteous servant and prophet, but we're not saying. According to the Bible language, and we're talking in symbolism, we'll make that perfectly clear. So he was a supplanter. He was wicked. He plotted and schemed to steal the birthright. They moved it from Egypt and put it there in Jerusalem, face Solomon's temple. So they put the emphasis there. Can you follow me? This is what they have done. And this is the point that we're trying to bring out. So the Jacobite is the Jacob in his first form before he wrestled in chains. Whenever you have an order and there's a change, there are those that hold on to the first way. So when we talk about the Zionists, when we say Jacobite, when we say the Zionist conspirators, when we say those manipulators and controllers of human sentiment, when we say those that have a control on life and suppressing Islam and trying to suppress the world and control the world, we're not talking about all Jews. We cannot make a blanket statement like that. We're talking about those with that mentality. We're talking about that materialistic, expansionist mentality and rulership in Israel. That's those type of mentality that we're talking about. So they came up with that story. They concocted the story. Then they passed it on down. Now you say you have Jesus. They say Jesus, peace be upon him. It never happened like that. They say Jesus, they crucified. Isn't that what they say? They say here was a man. They say he sat at the right hand of his father. Say he had a king. They say they crucified him without a cause. Isn't that what they say? They say they crucified him. How did they crucify him? They put thorns on his head. Right? On his head again. And caused the blood to bleed out. They say they pierced him in his side. Near the heart again. And they gave him while he was on the cross, according to Christianity, they gave him venom to cut off his wing. So here you see. Now, who participated in that? They said, you want Barabbas or you want Jesus? Was not, according to Christian teachings, were not the Jews the ones who participated in that? Were not they the ones? I mean, I don't think that Pontius Pilate really wanted to have anything to do with it. But they participated. What are we saying? Not Jewish, but this Zionist manipulative. We can see it through the scriptures. We can see what they've done and why they're coming out against our religion. Now, Mason, this Freemasonry, this whole secret order, we find that they took Jesus down and they say they buried him in a cave, buried him in materialism, and rolled a stone in front and put a guard out. So what have they done? They've stolen the precious jewels of Scripture. They've stolen the precious knowledge. And they went in their secret chambers. They went in their secret vaults. And they study the science of human nature. But they have a collar at the door. They have death rules to keep you from going in to get the knowledge. And this is what we pointed out before, that the thorn represented secrecy. Because when you want water in the desert to get to the cactus, you can't because the thorns pierce you. You can't get to the water. You see a pretty rose with thorns around it. You can only look at it, but you can't grab it because it got thorns to frighten you away and to pierce you away. They got some knowledge. So they got terror and they got thorns around it to keep you from coming in and getting the knowledge. Now, this is what they've done. Now in Masonry, if I may try to wrap it up real quick. Originally, Masonry consisted of 3 degrees. Interdependent, fellow craft, master mason. They represent the physical, the mental, and the spiritual aspects in man. This is what they represent, our 3-stage development in man. If you go back to the pyramid again, it comes up and it forms 3. Physical, mental, and spiritual. And even this cone shape right over top with the eye, vision, that cone shape is 3. So we want vision in our mental, physical, and spiritual aspect in man. We want to be able to see. We want to have understanding. And this is what they've tried to do. They tried to cut off the understanding and conceal it. Nevertheless, on the 1st degree of masonry, the candidate comes in, he knocks, he's seeking light in masonry. There on the altar, you see the 3 great lights. The 3 great lights of masonry is called the compass, the square, and the Bible. And it's important because when you see these emblems, you see the square and the compass. And this is how you recognize with a G in the middle. Nevertheless, when they come in, the point of the compass is under the square. Square is used for measuring material things. So as I pointed out, it's a symbol of our material nature, of our material aspect. So when he comes in the compass is used for drawing circular description, circular motion. So it is a description or it relates to circle. When we look to the heavens, we see circles. So the circle has been used as a symbol of the spiritual. As human beings, we stand with our feet together. We form a square on the earth. As we come up higher, our heads are circled. So it's a union of the spiritual and material. So when they come into the lodge, they find the points of the compass under the square, meaning in our early stage, that the Mason coming in is dominated by material concern. His material concern dominates his spiritual nature. He hasn't evolved into spiritual insight. Now his working tools there. The working tool is the 24-inch gauge and the common gallon. A gauge again is used for measuring material things. And they break it down, 24-inch gauge as representing 8 hours for worship, 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest. This is how they break it down. But again, it's used for measuring material things. Here we're trying to show the growth of man. Masonry is a system designed to teach man the signs of human nature, to give him insight, degree by degree, step by step, through the use of symbols, initiation, and instruction. So it alludes to the natural progression of man. And this is sacred. This is sacred to have this understanding. It's sacred because we see what Allah has created. What Allah has created, and this is the knowledge that they have when they don't want us to understand. Why, again, it's important? Because they say Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It only refers to physical, mental, and spiritual. These are aspects in us. They've established their society. 3 levels: state, local, state, and federal government. They have 3 branches. They have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. These are the operations that are right here in the society, but it's based on their Messianic order also. But they find this great knowledge. They got it from Africa, Egypt. They looked to the Kaaba even. They looked to Mecca. They got great wisdom, and they stole it. And this they have suppressed our people. We need education. We need knowledge. It's not just the symbolism, but we have to say these things to let them know that it's been opened up. To let them know that nothing is a secret. Right. And let them know that God reveals what he wants when he wants. So the 1st degree represents material. His left sleeve is rolled up. His left leg is rolled up. He's taught how to step off on his left foot. Left is the weaker side. Not that it's bad, but it's weak. It represents the weaker side. We start out as human beings weak, and we go into strength. So he's taught to step up on his left foot. Now he's blindfolded. Again, he sees again, this is a material man. It's representing our growth in the dark. So he steps off on his weaker foot, his left foot. Then he brings it up and he forms a 90-degree angle. So it's a square of 90 degrees. So we form a simple square. You have the simple square and we have the perfect square. Okay? Now the simple square, the regular square, this is like an L, because I never can draw. So that's a simple regular square of 90 degrees. Then we have the perfect square, right? Which is a box. Okay? Now, he forms a square he steps off on the left. Representing he's a weak man in the knowledge. So he's growing into the knowledge and into understanding. And they place him in the northeast corner, which is the dark corner, which says he's in the north. And the east representing the light. Meaning, are you going to stay in dark or are you going to travel towards the light? So he starts off. So we'll understand when we see it. When we talk with people, he steps off. So you'll see a guy, he slides his foot out. Now, when we look at ancient Egypt, and you look at the pictures, you see the pictures of the god, they always have a left foot out. They always have a foot out. Meaning they're making progress on the path. They're moving on the path of intellectual development and community activity. So they're moving on the path. So he starts out with his left and he brings the heel here. His side, his dugard and penal sign is this. It is horizontal. So if it's horizontal, it's material. Either we're resting, we're sick, we're asleep, we're dead. It's horizontal. So it's material. Now, and that's what his gauge is, material. It's stretched out 24 inches for measuring stones, the material thing. So he's here. Now his dugard is this, the way he takes his oath on the Bible square and compass. So you'll know some of the signs for those that it matters to. He's like this, and he kneels on his left knee. Everything is the left at this stage. And he takes his oath like this. So this becomes his dugard, like this. And his penal sign is this, meaning having his throat cut. Nevertheless, for our purposes, is to show the material that he's seen as a material man grown. Now, in the next degree called fellow Christ, he steps off on his right foot and he brings the heel to the hollow. Okay? Now he's on his right. Everything is right. His right sleeve is rolled up. His right leg is rolled up. He says, I'm neither barefoot nor shoes. His left shoe is taken off and he has a slip on his right and vice versa. Okay? So it represents the rational, the doing of rational insight. So on the altar is the Bible square and compass. Now at this point, a part of the compass is raised above the square. Meaning he's starting to advance in spiritual understanding. See, before the square dominated. Now on one side is raised. He's coming into rational insight. How can we relate to this? We lay horizontally as we sleep. When the light of reasoning pops up, we may pop up in the bed like this, right? With our backs against the bed. So we're laying one way, we pop up. Then the reasoning comes on. Then we fully alert, we jump about the bed horizontal. Perpendicular. We're up. So now his is raised. Now he has the blindfold. Then they say, in the beginning there was darkness, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And he snatches it off to let our Christian brothers know that the reverend, the bishop, those that have went into Freemason, they look at the Bible from a different point. They understand that let there be light means let there be knowledge, wisdom, intelligence, understanding. It doesn't just mean when the sun popped up in the sky. To let you know that they have a greater insight. And on this point also, when the reverend goes and he swears on the Holy Quran, and then he comes back and he tells his congregation, there's but one holy book, and that's the Bible. There's no God but Jesus. Either he's playing with the religion of Islam because he just came there and said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. When they learn this and swear on it, then he goes back and tells them, now either he's praying with our religion or he's a hypocrite and he's lying. Ask the rest. They know those that have advanced to that. Nevertheless, on the second degree, he stepped up on the right, he's like this. So you understand, this is it, 90 degrees. 90 degrees, just like this. And his dugard and penal sign now starting to move up. His dugard is like this. This is how it is. He's resting his hand on the Bible and he's raising one. You see how the presidents take their inauguration, they swear on the Bible. So there's some movement from here to here. So he's moving upward. Now he's forming a square. Now his sign is this. He had his heart ripped out. Now remember, the first one is his throat. This one was his heart. And remember what we said about arm a bit, the will set. So it's all related. Now as a master mason, he steps off on his left and he brings the heel together. He's raised. He's upright. He's a perpendicular. Now his signs are as such. They're here. And it's done like this. Meaning having his body cut. But nevertheless, he has another sign which is higher. Now see, we went from here to here. Now both hands up. Spiritual development. This is his grand hailing or sign of distress. Now the triangle has long time been used as a symbol they use of God. Not the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but it represented three aspects. This was the teaching. It represented three aspects: beauty, strength, and wisdom, or the provider, the creator, the destroyer. It represented three aspects. So, and also they say the sign of deity because you can draw it with a straight line. I don't have too much space, but you can go just like this. It's just continuous. They say it's continuous, one line. So they said it represented the deity. So nevertheless, he is supposed to be a man that has come into spiritual awareness. He has gone up through his three-stage development. This is what they learn. This is what they have come into. And they have their various signs. Now on each level they get an apron. On the first, the apron, the bed, he said, I'm really not just draw it on. But the apron, so I can wrap this up for you. The apron is like this. Okay? The triangle over top the square. Now square represents the material. It sits material as a box, as a square. The material nature is four-sided. When we see animals, a lot says signs in creation. They walk on four. It's square. And the riddle of the Sphinx. The question is asked, what creature walks on four? Then on two. Then on three. They say it's man. We come out crawl. Then we stand up and we walk on two. Then when we come in age, we need a staff or a cane to lean on, which represents our spiritual insight or our experience. We lean on our experience once we get up in age. So we see these are the three-stage development. But as an infant apprentice, the beard is up. And remember, this is a spiritual die. Now he's still a material man. So they say that the apron was a symbol of innocence. The badge of a mason is a symbol of innocence. And we learn from reading the Bible that said Adam, when he became conscious of God's presence, he put some leaves on him, which they claim was the apron. And Adam, we know, was innocent. Allah tells us he slipped. So Allah forgave him and promised him guidance to lead him back to the path. We don't believe man is born in sin. Muslims don't accept that. So we believe that we're created in the best mold. But we can fall. But the Christian ideal, he was born in sin. But if they say this is a badge of a mason and a symbol of innocence, you don't condemn an innocent man. A man is innocent to proven guilt. You don't torture him and those after him for sinning if he was innocent, if he made a mistake. So this is what they say. Adam had a badge. Say he was innocent. Nevertheless, this is a material man, meaning the spiritual had not yet descended into the material. He had not become spiritually awakened. Like the Bible says, he was lame. And he became alive when God breathed the breath of life into the man, and he became a living soul. Now, on the next level, a piece of it is dropped in, and another piece is still up, representing movement in his rational conscience, his rational level, his mind. You see, but now as a master mason, he wears his beard down. Now, remind you, if this represents spiritual, it has dropped in, meaning as a master mason, he has come into spiritual insight. Spiritual awareness. He understands the need for material acquisition and spiritual insight. He should understand the need to spread the message. He should understand the need to come out here in the community. Because he's standing upright with his heels together, perpendicular. Allah tells us in the Quran that Abraham, was he upright on the mountain? Was he upright? He was dignified. They say he was neither a Christian nor a Jew. He was an upright man. He was a Muslim. So we ought to be upright. But this is what he has. He said he has descended into the man. So he has come into spiritual life. These are sacred aspects in our development. Sacred life connections, if we will. So this represents our growth, our development. So from that point, this is what the president is a whole lot more I can go into. Vice presidents, presidents, rulers of this society. These are the things they went into and have taken actual death over, never to reveal this. Now, many of this growth, this development, we see right here on a dollar bill. Most of this has come up out of ancient Egypt, come up out of Sudan, come all up out of Africa. Then also, there in Mecca, we have a square or a cube shaped in a circle. And we see this cube, our material conscience, being circumscribed by taqwa, a genuine God consciousness. We must have genuine God consciousness in our material concerns. And we find the same things there. And this is what they have, what they call the keystone in the Royal Arts degree. And I'll wrap it up and hopefully we go for question and answer. In the Royal Arts degree, again on this dollar bill we see like a cone, but they have a keystone. A keystone is basically shaped the same, and it unites the arches. You see, now they have an eye here, meaning in our three-stage development we need vision. But now in the Royal Arts degree they have a side like this, and like this, as if they're blocking out light. What had happened in the Royal Arts degree, they deal with the rebuilding of Solomon's temple, when the Jews supposedly went into captivity. And as they went down into the shaft, they found certain things. They were looking for the Ark of Covenant, etc. So as they went down, they saw the great light, the delta, and the light shined in their face, and it was like this. So in the Royal Arts degree, we can see definitely a parallel. Now in the Royal Arts degree is where they find this lost word. They're traveling in search of the lost word, the tetragrammaton, I believe is what it's called. Tetra, meaning four, but there's a long word. And these four are supposed to be Jehovah, or Yahweh, which alludes to the four basic elements again. And we see the light which draws it up. And in this particular Royal Arts, which is the 13th degree, what we find is they concentrate on Moses. And they say here, they come with the signs of Moses. Moses was given a sign. He said, throw down your staff. And when he threw it down, he jumped back because it turned into a serpent. Now he had got this staff from Egypt, so he was commanded to throw it down. And it transformed to a snake. Then he picked it up and he was able to use it to defeat Pharaoh. Nevertheless, another sign, they say Allah told him to stick his hand in his bosom and to pull it out, and it was white. Then he sticked it back, and then it came back to its regular form. This is one of their signs as Royal Arts Masons. Another, they take the cup and they pour it, it turns to blood of the water. So it's a sign here. So you understand, brothers and sisters, that there are certain signs, certain symbols, and we can recognize this. And inshallah, as we grow and we have more time, we can expand on these things even further. But we need to know the hidden hands, the manipulative forces. This is the inner working, so we can recognize it. But there's a greater secrecy. There's a greater plan on their part for control and dominance. Why understand human nature? Because if they understand human nature, they can manipulate human nature. They can control human nature. They can put the sensitivity the way they want to move the sensitivity. So we're talking about a real beast, a real devil. We're talking about people that really want to control. And it's not necessarily in a particular color, but we're talking about control. And by the grace of Allah, we will establish our Quran. Allah said, work in your place. Some may be interested in other things. You may be interested in economics. You may be interested in the study of hadith. You may be interested in the compilation of Quran. We may have different studies, but we all have to contribute what we have come into for the building of our community, for the building of our society, and to educate our people where we see the need to educate them. The whole idea is to advance our people with knowledge, education. And what I'm trying to do by the grace of Allah is to base it on the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. Nothing else. I'm not looking in here to follow no symbolism. I want to go with the basis of the book. I'm not building anything. I pray Allah I never go off into anything building it on the mystery. I'm only saying this to make us aware of what they're doing. I stand on the Quran and the Sunnah. Those are my working tools. Those are the working tools of the Muslim. The Prophet Muhammad said, I leave with you two things, this Quran and the Sunnah. He who adheres to that will never go astray. And by the grace of Allah, I will always try to adhere to that. And I pray Allah that we be able to bring you some information and move it kind of fast, and hopefully we can condense it a little better next time. And by the grace of Allah, we will come into more light and understanding, and understand the importance of knowing about this. And for the African American brothers who are in this law, in the Masonic order, they need to understand, we need to tell them that look, the Caucasian is looking east. He's looking to our forefathers. Yes, he's looking to our ancient wise men. He's looking to the Quran. He looks there for guidance. Prince Hall wrote all the way to England, and I'm not condemning him. He wrote all the way to England. In 1775, he was initiated. 1784, he wrote to England for a charter. According to history, he received the charter. The Americans didn't want him to have a charter. He wrote to England, their mother. So their mother gave him a charter, according to what they say. Now, when he set up his lodge in 1787, African Lodge number 459, him and 13, 14 others, now the Caucasians consider them clandestine. Clandestine meaning a group of men assembled together to illegally practice masonry. So they spend time, effort, money, research, trying to get acceptance from the Caucasians. They need to stop spending money and effort trying to get acceptance from the Caucasians. If the Caucasians say he's traveling east from which you came, then you don't need to be looking at him for that. Just study the history. Study the Quran. Do research. Encourage the children to do research, to grow up into the research. It was a ploy. It was a plot on the part of England to give America, so-called African-American people, to give them a charter to increase the hostility between the Caucasians and the African-American people. It was a plot, it was a ploy. And we, as Muslims, inshallah, we try to educate our people. And with that, I'd like to greet you and thank you for having patience with me. And I hope some things were learned. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah. Real quickly, we'll see the next place where we went, which I showed before. We ended up in August. This is July, August 4th, 5th, 6th, 87 in Green Haven, right? Correctional facility. So we ended up in Sing Sing, then here in Cleveland, and then there. And then after that, we ended up, which I didn't realize before, just a week away from seeing Imam Muhammad, Masjid Muhammad, Jersey City. It was in Free Haven, August 6, 1987, after what we just showed from July. Now we ended up at Masjid Muhammad in Jersey City. We'll share a little bit of that and close it. And I definitely have forgot about that. So, and then after that, a week later, we in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where we meet with Imam Muhammad for the first time. And then after he shared with me on secrecy and some other things, then we started growing and making whatever adjustments we thought was right.
And become. It said, none of you truly believe until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. Which means if we have knowledge, which means we have food, shelter, whatever it is that we have, that a true believer desires for his brother, that which he desires for himself. So on that note, I thought it would be very important to bring these things out because we're talking about Masonic symbolism and we're talking about Freemasonry and the concepts of secret societies, of holding the knowledge, of hoarding the knowledge, and of keeping the knowledge among a select few, a select group, primarily for the purposes of controlling the masses and primarily for the purposes of advancing their own selves. So I'd like to first go to put a couple of symbols on the board, which perhaps you have seen either on cars or you've seen them on buildings or you've seen rings of this nature. And that is this symbol here. The compass, the square, and it has a gem in the middle. The Masons, they wear a ring with this emblem. You also see it on the back of their cars, and you may see it on buildings also. I just want to put something here for later on. Hopefully, inshallah, I'll be able to explain these.
At Masjid Muhammad, Jersey City. August 8th, 1987. 2 weeks before I met the Imam in August of the same year.
First, I think it'd be good to define Freemasonry. Freemasonry is defined when we just look at the word Freemasonry. When you think of a Mason, you think of one who builds, one who is in the knowledge and the science of building, of laying bricks, of pulling bricks together and building edifices and building buildings and involved in construction. So when you think of Masonry, that's what's the first thing to come to mind. Now there's two types of Masonry, what they call operative and speculative. Now operative is the physical Masons, those that build buildings like this, those that you see out on the roads and developing the edifices and projects, etc. Now those are the operative Masons, and it means just that it operates in the society, it's alive, it operates.
Now, speculative masonry is what we're concerned with. That is spiritual, the spiritual masonry, where you see the lodges, where you see the gentlemen with the feathers sometimes. Those are the speculative masonry. And speculative masons, what they have done is taken the operative concepts, for example, of laying bricks. They may consider a rough brick before it's made right for the building. They would consider that man's human nature, man's rough, rude nature in his early stage. So we have two types of masonry, operative and speculative. Now what we're talking about is the speculative or spiritual masonry. Now, the term is Freemasonry. So when we think of Freemasonry or a person that's building, it should bring to mind a person that is free to develop himself, that's free to build his mind, to build his character, to build his inner being. So when we think of Freemasonry, this is what comes to mind in the literal sense of the word Freemason, one who is free to develop his mind, to improve upon his life. But in their secret society, it is not free necessarily. Not only do you have to pay $1 to come in it, but once you get in, you also have a death oath. You have an oath so you can't reveal it to other people. So it's not actually free in that sense. But we as human beings and we as Muslims, those of us who have come into some understand that it is free because Allah has made it available. All of the knowledge goes back to Allah, and we are to benefit from that knowledge and develop our character and develop ourselves. Another definition, Freemasonry comes from an Egyptian word, Freemason, P-H-R-E-M-A-S-S-E-N, I believe, which means sun, which means light, and sun, or child of light. So Freemason means child of light also. And Masons say they're traveling, this is some of their language, from west to east in search of light. So they're looking for knowledge, they're looking for light, they're looking for understanding. This is some of their catechism. Now they're traveling from west to east because they say as the sun rises in the east to govern and rule the heavens, so does man look to the east for the great knowledge, for the great wisdom. Now that's in a physical sense that they've traveled to Egypt, that they've traveled to Mecca, that they've come into the land of the east, they've gone into Africa and Asia and that whole continent to get knowledge and wisdom. But on another level, they look at the east as being spiritual and the west as being material. This Western world is a great mass of materialism. So they look at that as man's growth from material, from a physical being into spiritual awareness or spiritual knowledge. So they say they're traveling from west to east in search of light. So these are some basic definitions of the term Freemasonry. Now these here is supposed to be a compass and a square. But the G, whenever you see the G now, the G represents geometry, which is the art or the science or the liberal art that they focus on, geometry, because they deal with angles and parallels, etc. So it stands for geometry, it stands for Gnosticism. G-N-O-S-I-S, I believe that's how it's spelled, Gnosticism. And that is the knowledge or the study of spiritual sciences. And when you hear the word Gnosticism, you think of nostril. And we take the air into our nostril. And according to the Bible, it says God breathed into his nostril the breath of life and he became a living soul. So this represents spiritual science or the study of spiritual science, Gnosticism. And it also means, according to their teaching, God. But not God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. It's a play on a word where we put God, G-O-D. Goma Az-Dur. Goma Az-Dur. Beauty, strength, and wisdom. So when you see that, that's what it actually represents in their symbolism. Beauty, strength, and wisdom. Now the compass in the square. The compass has been used as an instrument that is used to draw circular description. It's used to draw circular description. So the compass is a symbol, or has been used as a symbol to represent spiritualism. Because when we look to the heavens, we see the round bodies in the heavens. When we look at ourselves as a human being, we see our foot form a square at the bottom on the earth. But as we come up, our heads are round. So the compass is used to represent spiritualism, or an instrument that's directed towards spiritualism or for drawing circles. So they have the compass. The square is used as a symbol of materialism. Now the square, you have two types. You have the perfect square for something that is used to draw circular description. It's used to draw circular description. So the compass is a symbol that has been used as a symbol to represent spiritualism. Because when we look to the heavens, we see the round bodies in the heavens. When we look at ourselves as a human being, we see our foot form a square at the bottom on the earth. But as we come up, our heads are round. So the compass is used to represent spiritualism, or an instrument that's directed towards spiritualism or for drawing circles. So they have the compass. The square is used as a symbol of materialism. Now the square, you have two types. You have the perfect square, four-sided, and you have the simple square, which is 90 degrees, an angle of 90 degrees, that Masons use for measuring stones. You see, they use it for measuring stones and preparing the stone for the building. So the square has been used as a symbol of materialism. Again, Allah tells us that there's signs in the heavens and in the earth, in the alternation of night and day, as well as in yourselves for men who reflect and men of faith. So if we look at ourselves, we form squares as human beings. We form a square here on the earth. So it's used as a symbol of material things. When we look at the animals on all fours, they form a square if you draw the line. So the square, just to emphasize, is a symbol of material things. All buildings, you lay at the foundation, the corner in the northeast corner, and you square it out. So the square is a symbol of the material. And the compass has been used as a symbol of the spiritual. So when they come into the lodge, or you see this, you have the material and the spiritual. But there's movement with these two instruments. Now, when they come into the lodge, you have on the altar the compass and the square. When he comes in, it's on the altar. The square is above the compass. Now, the square is material, and it's above the compass, which represents spiritual, which means in the early stages that man is dominated by his material needs. Or he comes in, he's a material creature. He hasn't evolved yet to his spiritual insight. So he's just concerned with his body, his material nature. But as it advances, one part of the compass is raised above the square as you go to the next degree. What we're going to emphasize here is growth and development. Man's growth and development, physical, mental, and spiritual. Threefold aspects in man, which are very important for us to understand these three-stage aspects in our life. You see, we don't separate them. We see them all as one. But here what Masonry, again, another definition for Masonry so we can understand this, is a system that teaches man the knowledge and the science of human nature, degree by degree, by the use of symbols, initiation, and instruction. So now we're here working with the symbols. So as they advance from degree to degree, one part of the square, one part of the compass is raised above the square, which means he's made some progress. Then as he gets to the next degree, this part is raised. So as they progress in Masonry up the degrees, the compass is eventually raised above the square, which means he's a master and he has come into some spiritual light and some spiritual knowledge. Now, just to lay some foundation, there are basically what is 33 degree system in Masonry. It's 33 degrees, but originally there was just 3 degrees. And what those first degrees are called, the first degree is entered apprentice. The second one is fellow craft. And the third one is master mason. So there was essentially 3 degrees, and then they extended those degrees. But to work with the first 3 degrees, you see that the candidate, when the person comes into the Masonic Lodge, he knocks on the door and he says he's long been in dark and he's seeking light in Masonry. He's blindfolded. He has a rope put around his neck. He's taught, well, his sleeve is rolled up, his left sleeve is rolled up, everything on the left side. Now remember, the left is not bad, but it represents the weak part. It's weaker than the right generally. So it's seen as man's growth. We start out weak and we grow into strength. So they roll up the left sleeve, they roll up the left leg, and they put a slipper on the right foot, but the left foot is barefoot. So it's barefoot. So he says he's neither barefoot nor shoes, meaning he doesn't have both shoes off. He just has one shoe off, and on one he has a slipper. So he comes in, all of this is on the left side, and he steps off on his left foot. He's taught to step off on his left foot. And when he approaches, now mind you, he's in the dark. They say he's in the dark and he's moving into the light. And this is just our growth and our development. And I want to emphasize that because they have some good knowledge in their system. But if I emphasize the importance of the knowledge that they have in their system, then we can see just how selfish and how devilish it is, because they have important knowledge that is being held and being suppressed. So it's not so much to come up and say it's all evil, it's all bad. Then we can't really see the seriousness of the crime. If we say there's nothing there and it's not important, then we can't see the seriousness of the crime. You say, hey, there's no need for them to reveal it. It don't mean nothing to nobody anyway. But the first 3 degrees, into the apprentice, fellow craft, master mason, and it works in this society. You have the local government, state government, and federal government. In government, you have also the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. You find these 3 prevalent in this society. Okay, so now as an entered apprentice, when he comes in, he takes his oath. So you understand some of the signs. He takes his oath on the Bible, the square and the compass. He takes it like this, holding it in his left hand, and he puts his right hand over it, and he holds it like this. And on this here, he takes his oath not to reveal the secret. So his sign, you may see his sign is like this. Now, he steps up on his left, so his left foot will be out like this. And he may be standing like this. Okay, now all this has deeper meaning. As we go along, I'll expound on it. But I just want to present it as it is, just as they say it, just as they teach it. So if nothing else, you know how they teach it, then we can expound on it. So he stands like this, okay, because this is how he took his oath. And he's on his left foot. But he really, when he takes his oath, he kneels on his left knee. But he's taught to walk, how to approach the each. He steps off on his left foot, okay? But that's how we start out. And he brings his right foot up like this, okay, to the hollow. So this is how he would stand, correct myself. Now, he's like this. Now, he has a penal sign. His penal sign is done like this, okay? Which means if he revealed anything at that degree, he'd have his throat cut, according to their teaching, okay? So it's like this. So they may just, you know, it may not be as obvious. They may just do something like this, okay? Now, he has certain working tools. Now, again, think in terms of a mason, a builder. We're builders. We're building our life. We're building our family. We're building society. So they're builders. We are builders. The prophets were builders. They all laid stones for the development and advancement of society. So we're thinking of builders. So builders have certain tools, certain working tools that they work with. And I haven't left this because it's all going to tie in. So on the first degree, and again, I want to emphasize that I'm just giving it as it is. So just bear with me, then we'll try to tie some other things in. On the first degree, his working tools is the 24-inch gauge. It's basically like a ruler, but it's 8, 8, 8. It's a ruler for preparing the stone, for measuring stone, and a common gavel. The gavel is to chip away at the rough edges of the stone. Okay? So they're preparatory tools. Now this 24-inch gauge, they say it's 8 hours broken up. 8 hours for worship, 8 hours for work, and 8 hours for rest or refreshing. Okay? So now the gauge, we see it is a straight line. So again, we're talking about a material. Anything that's horizontal, again, is either resting, sleep, or dead. It's on a horizontal level. So he is a material man again. He's just concerned with his material appetites, okay, or just basic concern. And he has the gavel, which prepares the stone, the rough stone. So now, he's a material man. Now, as he moves up